Matthew 13 raises a question that defines the modern debate over Mary. The text asks of Jesus, "Is not this the carpenter's son? Is not his mother called Mary? And are not his brothers James and Joseph and Simon and Judas? And are not all his sisters with us?" To a modern reader, these verses appear to close the case. We see the words brothers and sisters and assume Mary had other children. As a convert from a Protestant background, I found this teaching to be a significant historical roadblock. My upbringing made the sibling interpretation seem like the only biblical option. When I first encountered the Orthodox confession that Mary is ever virgin, it felt alien and unnecessary. It looked like an unbiblical addition to the simple story of the gospel. However, evaluating an ancient text through a modern linguistic filter creates a culturally biased contradiction. To understand the brothers of Jesus, we have to look at how family was defined 2,000 years ago. Part of the difficulty for seekers is that traditional defenses of Mary's virginity are often presented poorly. This is the Gnostic trap, the flawed argument that Mary and Joseph avoided marital relations because sexual intimacy is inherently defiling or spiritually inferior. The Orthodox position is clear. God created the material world and the human body as good. Within the Church, marriage is a holy sacrament, not a shameful concession. Any attempt to protect Mary's honor by denigrating the holiness of marriage is a theological distortion. Mary's perpetual virginity represents a physical boundary around the singular, unrepeatable nature of the Incarnation. While the New Testament uses the word brothers, the text never describes Mary giving birth to these individuals. In modern English, our kinship map is rigid. Brother has a single biological definition. Ancient biblical kinship was far more expansive. In Genesis 13, Abram and Lot are explicitly called brothers, though the narrative reveals Lot was actually Abram's nephew. This linguistic context also applies to Matthew 1:25, which says Joseph did not know Mary until she brought forth her son. In biblical Greek, the word until describes what did not happen before an event, without mandating that the situation changed afterward. Similarly, the title firstborn is a Jewish legal designation. It consecrates a child who opens the womb, regardless of whether subsequent siblings are ever born. These terms reflect an ancient household structure where extended family lived as a single unit. In that world, broad kinship language was the standard way to describe the household of Jesus. Scripture confirms Jesus had close kin, but the vocabulary of the time does not require them to be Mary's biological children. The crucifixion narrative provides a critical piece of evidence. In John 19, as Jesus is dying, he entrusts the care of his mother to the Apostle John. Under Jewish family law, the obligation to care for a widowed mother belonged to her surviving sons. If Mary had other biological children, entrusting her to John would have been a public violation of family duty. The early church viewed this scene as proof that Mary had no other children to care for her. The dominant Eastern view, defended by Epiphanius, identifies these brothers as Joseph's children from a previous marriage, making them Jesus' step-siblings. The common Western view, championed by Jerome, identifies them as close cousins. While the East and West differed on the specific familial link, they historically stood together in rejecting the idea that these were Mary's biological children. This universal agreement of the ancient undivided church provides the interpretive framework that modern, isolated readings of the text lack. Understanding this history requires us to replace the anti-body language often used to defend this doctrine. Instead of suggesting Joseph was repulsed by intimacy, the church teaches that he reverently guarded the mystery entrusted to him. This reframing reveals Joseph as a righteous protector who prioritized a unique divine vocation over an ordinary household life. Within the Orthodox faith, marriage and virginity are recognized as two distinct, holy callings that can both be consecrated to God. The theological key to Mary's vocation is the holiest object of the Old Testament, the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark was holy because of the divine presence it carried, not because its gold and wood were physically different from other materials. The contents of the ancient Ark find their fulfillment in the Incarnation. The tablets of the law become the Word made flesh. The manna becomes the bread of heaven, and Aaron's rod becomes the eternal high priest. Mary is the living ark of the new covenant, a vessel consecrated by the presence of God dwelling in her womb. Her perpetual virginity stands as a physical confession of the reality of the Incarnation. Severing Scripture from the Church's historical memory leaves the text vulnerable to the shifting assumptions of private judgment. The Church confesses Mary as ever virgin because the mystery of the mother protects the mystery of the Son. If Mary is truly the God-bearer, her total consecration testifies that the child she bore is God in the flesh. This doctrine invites us to approach Scripture with humility, questioning whether our modern assumptions are more accurate than the memory of the ancient Church. Honoring the perpetual virginity of the mother is an act of standing in awe before the Word made flesh.